the salt
Seg away.
Trump's
Yeah, let's go into the issues of the day.
big beautiful, was it called Big Beautiful Bill?
Big beautiful bill.
I don't know why it's big or beautiful, but maybe our resident economist Eric and numbers guy Paul can walk me through, like, why is it big and beautiful, and why are there 26 senators? There's a typo.
Go for it, Eric, because I'm not up to speed. So catch
Well,
us up.
I mean, it feels like, Trump wants a one big bill. That's what he's been talking about, ever since the election, right? And I think, strategically, they feel that that's easier, right? They just want to kind of blow their wad all at once. They don't want to do separate bills. And honestly, I've always felt like that was a fairly smart plan. I everything they do sucks. Every bill they pass is a piece of shit. It's full, right? Like, I really don't, my hopes are very low. And they've done it the other way in the past, even though that this is honestly the definition of like comprehensive. I generally don't like the comprehensive bills, but just in terms of, expending political capital, it felt like, doing the one bill actually, made some sense. There's something I learned this week. I was wondering why the conversation went from, making Trump's tax cuts permanent from his first administration to now just extending them. And the little bit of info I got, which is the fact that they went the reconciliation route. Remember the House about 6 weeks ago, they passed the framework. And then they're doing this so they don't need the 60 votes to get, filibuster proof majority, right? So they're going reconciliation, and apparently they can't make things permanent through reconciliation. At least that's what has been explained to me in my research shows. So that's the reason why they're just going to try and extend these things for another, so many years, which really sucks because, the cynic in me immediately went to it's like immigration. They don't want to fix it because they want it to be a perennial, subject that they can run on. So I would imagine that's still true, but it seems like the fact that they're going via reconciliation instead of just a, normal bill pass is why they can't make these things permanent. They have to make them, also the SALT deduction, which is, if you don't know, it is the state and local tax deduction, which you get to deduct, if you pay a shit ton of state and local taxes, you get to deduct those from your federal taxes. In Trump's first term, in order to pass his tax package the first time, and look, I actually don't agree with this mechanism, but in order to get it scored by the Congressional Budget Office, tax cuts have to be paid for. Again, I don't agree with that at all. I think you cut government. I don't think you have to pay, you cut taxes and cut government and call it a day. You know what I mean? Like this idea that if you lower people's taxes or lower the regulatory burden or the fee structure, and you have to somehow fill that money hole with something else, that to me just sounds nuts. Like why is that the default? Why is that the assumption? So when SALT was pulled back, the cap was pulled back to 10K in Trump's first term. That actually gave a lot of money back to the offset, to the pay for. And when it happened, I was paying a lot in state and local property taxes personally. That hurt me. I had to pay a lot more. But at the time, I realized it was the right thing for the country. It's one of these things this is a progressive blue state, offset. It's a subsidy that you get that's essentially paid for by the rest of the country because your state and local governments are charging you too much in taxes. And so just to fast forward, I mean, this is a big one. I think the SALT thing is really going to blow up. And actually, I've been predicting this for months because you can kind of see it from a mile away. But as soon as Trump won, the New York SALT delegation, which is Mike Lawler from Rockland and Elise Stefanik and a couple other, two other New York reps, went down to Mar-a-Lago and they inserted their tongues, 2 miles up Trump's ass. And they got him to essentially pre-agree to increasing that cap back up from 10 to wherever. They're fighting for like 200 grand. But the New York delegation lost their mind. They were like 30. That's insulting. can't believe, we're holding out for 200K. And then Mike Lawler gets on TV and he's like, I read Trump's book. I'm master of art of the deal and we're not budging. And he's saying shit like, I'm the reason the GOP won the House. Like, you can't fuck with me. Like, that's not verbatim, but he's a very strange guy. And they're even talking about like him running for governor of New York. I don't really see how that's going to happen, but the SALT issue is now being picked up by, some of the red state, fire breathers. Marjorie Taylor Greene is just on a rampage against this guy in the last few days. Like, how dare you hijack Trump's agenda? Like, there's no other like regional interest group that is sort of threatening to torpedo the entire enterprise. Like, everybody else seems like they're kind of holding hands and trying to at least do a kumbaya, trying to at the very least go, okay, everybody's got to take some pain. Everybody's got to cut, some of their pet programs. And then you have these New York guys who are like, screw you. We're taking this back. And we're not only going back to the previous level, we want it cranked up to infinity. And if you don't like it, then go jump.
So let me just to reconstruct what you're saying. I just want to understand. So is Lawler, like, he's a GOP guy in New York?
He is.
Okay, so like he's basically putting his own constituency ahead of the country by wanting to raise this deduction.
And not to play class warfare here. Yes, it is it is something that is enjoyed by very high end individuals. It's
because
it's super progressive.
Most people don't pay that level of tax.
People don't pay that, right? It affects a very, very small amount, but it is campaign donors. And here's the other interesting thing. You know who wholly supports this effort? The entire Democrat Party. They love this. They are
sure, because then they can just tax like crazy, and people will never get voted out.
Absolutely.
Wait a minute. So the other side likes SALT. Like
they like
want
to do.
Oh yeah. They're
what allows them to keep taxing
for sure
without the public screaming uncle, right?
Right.
So I'm kind of confused. So I think in principle, I like the idea of SALT. I think you shouldn't pay double on what you make, right? Is that the idea? Like, why am I paying the federal government, and then I'm also paying state, local, and I don't know what kind of taxes are they property? Like, what kind of taxes constitute your income tax? What's considered part of stuff?
It's essentially your state tax bill. Their insistence on these 200 grand. That's where they are. They say it's non-negotiable. 200 grand.
Part of the problem, I think,
that's insane.
It's there's a moral hazard here, because if you have this tremendous deduction, which I agree, like, as a New York person, like, I would love to have that deducted, but that you're effectively able to export your tax burden to the rest of the country, so you never have to pay a price for raising taxes.
That's the
on your own state citizens, because it allows these Democrat politicians to continue to tax wildly, because they know that it'll count against the tax bill of their big donors. So that's kind of how I look at it. You're right. Like, I think it's wrong that you get taxed twice, right? Essentially, without it. You have to pay state tax on income, and you have to pay your federal tax on income. What is the deduction right now? Like, currently, is it still 10,000?
It's 10.
They're negotiating a higher deduction.
Right. They offered them
deduction,
30.
not a credit, right? It's you're deducting from your income.
That's right.
Okay.
So I'm going to point out
just real quick. They also increased the AMT last time.
What does AMT mean for those who don't know?
It's just the alternative minimum. It's so you don't have to itemize. It was actually, here's the thing, like, of Trump's first term, that part of his tax bill was kind of, most people kind of agreed on, even on both sides. They were like, yeah, that's better, right? It was better to pull the SALT cap down to 10. A lot of people were saying, go, get rid of it altogether, right? But it allowed, like I said, because of that scoring, because of that pay for, because of that offset, it allowed other tax cuts that are better and more universally, beneficial to be set in. And so to go back and try and grapple and sort of and futz with that is, it's actually going to pull the thread on a lot of things that are, again, they're better breaks, they're better tax cuts. They're also talking about increasing the corporate rate if these SALT guys get what they want.
Bear with me as someone who don't really track these things, and I should. You said that if the SALT cap is raised to something like 200K, that it will be subsidized by other states. How is that? I'm not understanding the mechanics. Isn't SALT going to be kind of universal in all the states? Like who's paying for it? You said, help us.
It's only it really only hits the states that tax the shit out of their residents, and then in other states, obviously, if you make a shit ton of money, you might get over that threshold.
Okay.
So basically, if you have a deduction in a high tax state,
yeah,
that means that the federal government is being denied a significant amount of income.
Okay,
right. Okay, look, this is not how I would phrase it, but from the perspective of the government, okay, they're getting less
from
revenue.
New York. They're getting
the beneficiary of that, drop is actually concentrated in these high tax Democratic areas, New York, California, etc. So you're, if you believe, let's just imagine for a moment that all this money is being spent wisely. Okay. Then the people who are bearing the brunt of those, that decline in services, are the people in states that don't tax their citizens heavily in as heavily as blue states do.
I'm not still following, because in the case of Florida, I don't feel like there's a decline, because we shuttle between New York and Florida. Okay. I don't feel like there's a decline of services in New York. I mean, in Florida, right, they're pretty good with their purse strings over there. So so there's this speaks to this other idea that if the government is quote unquote denied its sources from this potential SALT cap, that there will be bridges are going to collapse somewhere, and grandma will not be getting her 3 square meals a day. Grandma and is that the idea in other states? Just so I'm able to.
I don't know if does that ever happen, really.
But that's what I'm saying.
Well, no, I think Eric's point is that in order because there is this thing, and this I'm a little unclear on, where you have to, in order for a budget to be considered, it has to be sort of revenue neutral. Is that how it works, Eric?
Apparently, and especially in this reconciliation environment, you need the scoring, you need these offsets. Right, and it essentially creates a subsidy, right, where the rest of the country is subsidizing these offsets, which are only happening to these people because their states and local governments are charging them so much money with state taxes.
So allowing these deductions in one concentrated area is going to make it harder to lower taxes on everybody.
That's right. It kind of poisons the well. And it was interesting when it happened the first time. I mean, there was a little bit of outrage, but because of the other tax cuts, there was a lot of sweetener around it. And again, like I said, the general consensus, and again, it was, everybody hated not everybody, but the media hated everything that Trump did the first term. But that was one of the few bright spots. Even the MSNBC, not MSNBC, but CNBC, the economic shows actually were it hurts some of us, but it's the right thing to do.
So I got this question will help us move the conversation along. All right. So there's this SALT thing that's an impasse to Trump's quote unquote big, beautiful bill. Is there anything in Trump's big, beautiful bill besides the SALT that people, high income earners, would help them, would offset? Okay. So let's say you're not going to get assuming the negotiations go one way. Is there what?
I'm sure there is.
So what is it? What is it in Trump's big beautiful bill that a high income earner would offset whatever they're not getting in SALT potentially, that would help them. That's what I don't know anything about this. Like, when you look online, the way news is written and parsed out to the public, it's not framed like what we're talking about. I didn't even know. I wasn't even aware that the SALT was holding up Trump's big beautiful bill. That was not laid out like that. No one understands that. I'm just understanding it now.
Yeah.
What's in the bill that people that are using SALT to hold up Trump's bill that they would like, that would act, the mechanics, the economics will help them offset what they think they are, this double tax.
Well, they get a state tax exemption increase. That's part of it.
Yeah. But the other banner items too
are
threatened, no tax on tip, no tax on Social Security, lowering the corporate tax.
That's good.
Simplifying the tax code. I mean, all these things, and look, again, all these things cost money. Using the air quotes a lot,
but if you lower your corporate tax, okay, and you're not going to get SALT, you're the high income owner. You could. That's a bone that was thrown to you, right? Am I correct? Like, if you get lowered corporate tax.
Well,
I'm just trying to understand what is in Trump's bill that he could use to leverage and say, okay, you guys are not going to get SALT, but you're going to get something better in my bill. That's what I'm not
looking at it right now. It looks like there's a no millionaire tax hike, so you're excluding a proposed 39.6% tax rate for incomes over 2.5 million.
Okay, that's good.
If you want to talk about how you're looking for bones that Trump can throw these big New York donors to sort of kneecap these people, the politicians that Eric was talking about.
Generally, I mean, because I guess I have to come to our morning coffee stream to understand what I'm not understanding from the media.
Very complicated. It's bonkers. I mean, like, again, a lot of what's in the big beautiful bill, like, we don't know. Like, this is behind the scenes, negotiations.
Well,
we know what was in
Grok right now.
Trump's original 2017 tax bill. It did things like it lowered the standard, it increased the standard deduction. It lowered the brackets, the tax brackets, which is very important. And those are basic universal things, right? Like, I think we're all here in favor of, in general, letting people keep more of what they earn. And this jeopardizes that, right? Like, and again, it's this DC game. It's this parliamentary, these legal hurdles.
Okay.
And again, I think that Paul's point about the moral hazard is a really good one. Again, there's not any other delegation out there. There's not like the red state pepper crew who, I don't know, is holding out for some dumb shit that only affects them. So, there's an element of that, which is like the chutzpah of these people. Like, look, Democrats stick together, right? Republicans tend to not. And this is why. This is a prime example of people coloring outside the lines, and